Hi there, I'm Liz from Teach Between the Lines, and I wanted to come on today to just create a short video of two of the tools that I'm going to be using as our school goes towards a remote learning environment for students. We are trying to figure out the tools and systems that we want to put into place for a potential situation where we need to close school for 2 or 3 weeks. I know some schools are even going longer than that, and have complete e-learning or remote learning situations. I also like some of these ideas for like a snow day or a cold day situation, as our districts are leaning towards finding e-learning opportunities for those types of days as well. So these are the two things that I am working to set into place for the upcoming potential school closures. I live in Minnesota, so those are just starting to happen now for us, but I know that it's already happening all over the country. So the first thing that I plan on doing is creating videos, very much like the one that you're watching here for my students. I am using a tool called Screencast-O-Matic. If you're not familiar with that, Screencast-O-Matic just allows you to take videos of your screen. So you could have a PowerPoint in the background that you're walking through with students, just like you were in a classroom. And you can move back and forth between having, the screen larger. Potentially you want to show your students something that's happening. You have a whiteboard you want to reference, maybe a mini one, something to that effect. Or you just want them to see your face. Just kidding. You can make yourself smaller and in the corner so they still see you there. Or you can disappear yourself entirely so that there is no visual view and they're just looking at a PowerPoint, a screen, or a video, something to that effect. And so I really like this tool. The free version of Screencast-O-Matic allows you to take 15-minute videos at a time. For myself, I know that 15 minutes is an ideal time frame to keep your students engaged, potentially, especially when they're at home perhaps, but I think I need more than that. And so I did go ahead and upgrade to the subscription model, and I want to say it was maybe $6.95 a month. And so just for the few short weeks that I'm going to be using this tool pretty regularly, I felt it was worth it, and potentially maybe we can get reimbursed, right? Okay, so that's my recommendation, is to use a tool like this, and then when you upload the video, it turns it into an MP4 video that you can upload to Google Classroom. If you're using a Google Classroom feature, you can upload to a class website, which is what I'm going to show you as my secondary tool. Or you can save it to YouTube, and then you'll have a link. And so if you're just communicating via email with your students at this point, which is still a possibility, you can be sending out a video that's small enough to fit inside an email. So those are a couple of options for you and for your students. The other thing, like I said, I'm going to do is create a class website. If you have Google Classroom and you're familiar with its tools and functions, it's a pretty easy transition for teachers to go to remote learning if you feel your students have technology access. And I will say that both of these options are assuming that you have students with regular technology access. Some of the other options in my blog post will share options if you do not have students with one-to-one access or potential internet access at home. But this is for teachers who feel confident that their students do have access to technology. So I'm going to use Blogger. It's free, so there's no fee for me, and it's really quick and really simple to set up a basic website without needing to code anything or needing really any technology skills, which works for me. The site that I host my blog on is actually called WordPress, and that's a paid website. So I wouldn't probably recommend that in this situation, and I'm not going to use it for my students. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk through the steps that I take to create a class blog and just kind of show you so that it's just literally, you can just pick it up and you can use this tool if this is something that you're interested in. So you just go to Blogger, and then you create a title for your classroom. So I'm just going to say, Miss Taylor's temporary classroom. And then the tricky part here is finding an address that's not already taken. So I had to pause the video because it did take just a few a couple of tries to find a website URL that was going to work for my students. And so I ended up with Miss Taylor Has a Class, and it was approved. So I'm going to go with that. And I know that it's available because of the check here. So it gets easier after that. I think that's the hardest part, is finding finding the right address that is allowed. So you're just going to go down here and click on Create the Blog. This is popping up because it's saying if you want to make this more permanent, you may want to have this be a domain, and it can make a domain name for you. This is not something that's permanent for me or that I intend to use for an extended period of time, so I'm going to select no thanks. Now over here on the side, this is actually not what your students will see. This is your view as the admin. If you want to, and I'm not even suggesting this for this potential situation, but if you want to, you could certainly come over here and you could play with the theme and the layout, use better backgrounds, picture backgrounds, make it more visual or maybe more interesting for you and your students. I might play around with that this weekend, but I don't make any promises, and you certainly wouldn't need to. Now for actually creating content for students, I'm going to use the post feature to create a new post, and it brings up what is pretty user-friendly. It kind of looks like a Word document, and here is where I'm going to type my instructions to students. This is where I'm going to upload any videos that I want them to watch, or any links that I would like them to click on and have documents that they complete. So here I can say to students, for example, we're going to be, my thinking is we're going to be reading The Lord of the Flies, which is our class novel, and we're going to be doing a character analysis. And I have a digital character analysis resource. I actually have it for sale in my store if you're interested, but I'm going to create videos of the character analysis lessons in that folder and use them here for students they can view, but then they can actually use the all-in-one student Google Slides document to be doing their work remotely at home throughout the entire unit. So I might ask students to read pages 1 through 34 in Lord of the Flies and complete page 1 in this packet. And then this is where I would link the actual student notebook. Because this is not Google Classroom, what you'll want to do is just make sure that it's not editable. You don't want to give them the editable version, or they'll just edit your document and change it for everybody. So if you make it view only, then what students will do, and you could certainly put those directions in here, or put it perhaps in a video. Sometimes they listen better, but they will just make a copy, and then that document becomes theirs. And when they change it, it is theirs and theirs alone. And then they can turn that into you either via Google Classroom if you have it, or they can send you the link for you to view and grade. And then, so I would link that here, and then I might say, please watch this video lesson on character analysis. And then that's where over here is the video upload tool, and you can actually upload a video, an MP4 video from your computer. So you can click on something from your computer, so anything you create in Screencast-O-Matic you can upload here without having to do anything. If you do have a YouTube, you could always upload it to YouTube, and then you'll be able to find it here and just connect it. For example, here's my thesis lesson that I made for a snow day that we had. And then I could select it and I can insert it into the document here. And then there's lots of other features and tools and things that you can add for students here. But then when you're finished and you finish the assignment for them, you just click on Publish. And then you can come over here to View Blog, and this is where you're going to see the student view. So the students will see the date. They will see that their assignment is here. Any live links will be here. Any video links will be here. Videos will be here. The other cool feature is you could also kind of host a mini discussion here. You could ask a question, what do you think of Ralph? What's your first opinion on Ralph? Or some maybe more scholarly question about the book or the characters or whatever assignment you're remotely assigning to them. And then students can actually post a comment in here, and then you can have a bit of a discussion taking place right on this assignment page. The other feature, just coming back to the in my view, is you can actually make this private. So if you're going to post any like TPT resources or any content that you don't want just established out there in the world, you can actually make this private. And so you can go to edit, you can go down to blog readers here, and you can say private for only blog authors. So that's you and maybe a co-teacher until you're ready to publish it. But then when you're ready to publish it, you can go to private, but you can select the readers. And then down here in this box, you can type in their email addresses. And so you may have to spend a few minutes typing in each of your students' email addresses, but it will send them a personal invitation to their email to get to your blog. So in a way, you're sharing that link out with your students, but then only your students that have that personal invitation will be able to view the blog. So it gives it a sense of privacy. It gives people, if students are going to be posting comments, if they're going to be posting work, it makes you feel a little bit more safer about being able to do that. This is definitely an option that I would recommend, and it is what I'm going to do for my students. So something to keep in mind. But these are just the two resources that I'm going to be using to get through the next couple of weeks. One thing that I will mention is that everything in my TPT store, with the exception of my memoir unit, is both digital and printable. So if you are a school with one-to-one resources and you have the ability to assign digital Google materials, everything in my store is there for you, where you can pick up and you can go and you can get started with something, as I know this is really, really stressful, and not having to plan a whole unit and make it digital and figure out how that's going to work for students might be just a lifesaver. But it's also printable, and most of my units actually come with student workbooks that are just ready for you to take it to the printer and print it. And that way students can walk away with something as they leave for that last day before their e-learning begins. I have a couple of resources that I'm going to suggest down below, and several free digital and printable resources to get you started, because I know that this is just such a stressful and difficult situation that we're being put in. So I want to make sure that we are helping you out as much as possible. I've also teamed with about 15 other ELA teachers, phenomenal ELA teachers and teacher sellers, and we're putting together a list which will also be shared in this blog of all kinds of free resources, but all kinds of possible e-learning opportunities, discussion sites where students could go in and host a discussion, reading sites, things like that, our favorite digital resources. So you can check that out too, especially as you're at home and you're working on how am I going to get students to do a discussion, or how am I going to get students to connect, or how am I going to get students to turn something in. These are some great opportunities and suggestions for you as we go through this together. And we'll navigate it together. If you have any questions, leave a comment on the blog or reach out to me via email, and I'm so happy to help with any part of this process. And everybody, take care.